This is not how I imagined my first day.
Hello there everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm a little bit late in releasing this video and I do apologize. I've just been a little bit busy, but today I'm going to be discussing the Famitsu article that recently came up. I'll be giving you all of the points that are actually in my opinion interesting, and then I will also be elaborating with some of my personal opinions over them. So let's get right into it as always. And of course, if you do want to read this for yourself, there will be a link in the description. Now the interview starts off by showing us who we're actually getting to talk to, and it's the game director Kazunori Kadoi, the team director Ampo, and also the producer Hirabayashi. Now they start off by reiterating quite a little bit of facts that we already know, such as the fact they were surprised at E3 and the reception that Resident Evil 2 actually got there and afterwards as well. Now it goes on with another kind of common sense fact, which is that after Resident Evil 7, they did know that Resident Evil 2's remake would have to improve in the graphical fidelity, and of course this is just common sense. Any game that comes out after a previous game looks better. Now the only thing in this context that is actually relevant and interesting is they did say that Resident Evil 7 was going for a more natural and organic look, and Resident Evil 2 will be more cinematic, and I did want to elaborate on this point specifically because I have an opinion about this. Now Resident Evil 2 overall just kind of resembles Resident Evil 7 in graphics, to be honest, just more improved like they said. So what exactly do they mean by this cinematic feeling? And I'm just assuming it's the way the cutscenes work and things like that, being in third person, and also there's going to be a lot of flashy cutscenes, you know, with lots of big explosions, etc. Whereas Resident Evil 7 was more of a smaller isolated incident. There was no like huge explosion towards the end with an entire facility being blown up, and on top of that most of the cutscenes kind of gave off this found footage feeling. If actually the entire game gave off a found footage feeling, if anyone agrees with that. And then the last point I have about this is the fact that Resident Evil 7 scenery was a little bit more historic and archaic. There wasn't really any advanced institutions or beautiful environments, and of course even just looking at the RPD in Resident Evil 2, you can tell that it just looks like it's straight out of a movie, to be honest. But yeah, I think Resident Evil 2 is going to be more like a movie in that context. Now Hirabayashi does say that the game and the presentation was tweaked right up until the E3 presentation itself, and due to this his stomach felt tight when the game was showcased on stage. In the game, Leon is 21 years old and Claire is 19. Now the actors for Leon and Claire had their facial models scanned to obviously look like the characters and to also get that age across to the players. However, an interesting note that many people may not know, or probably will not know to be honest, is the fact that they did use a separate body actor and one from the actual Capcom staff for Leon, and they used an external body actor for Claire as well, and these weren't actually the facial actors. So when you actually look at the body on Leon and Claire, that is actually a separate person who was scanned than the face itself, which is kind of amazing to be honest. Now Capcom has done some very interesting things with the photo scanned assets they have. So if you all remember the Leon statue from the collector's edition, the model used for this was the photo scanned asset of Leon that was then tweaked by the artist, and that's what the final production of the statue actually is, a photo scanned asset of a real actor, and then that's been 3D printed out. Now it was easy apparently to find the facial model for Leon. You know, we can agree does look very much like Leon should, but the actual hair, which we know photogrammetry can't scan the hair, they had to design that themselves, was quite complicated to get down correctly. So to elaborate on that point, they did try to go for the RE2 style, but it just didn't seem to fit the character, and so they had to actually choose Leon's appearance more from Resident Evil 4 with his hairstyle, and that seemed to fit pretty well. Now they did try to go for Claire's original design, but it just didn't seem to fit, and apparently this is why they actually modernized it. Now it does seem seem like a lot of the content from the game is going to represent a 90s style atmosphere and vibe, and that is obviously the time period of the game, so things such as the music, accessories, vehicles, etc. should all represent the correct time period, and the developers did go to an extensive length to try to make sure this is true. Now, talking about Sherry's design, in the original game, the developer said she looked more closer to a 10-year-old girl than her actual 12 years of age, and she also acted a little bit more immature than she should have, and so in the reiteration, she is going to look a little bit more mature than the original game, but also her attitude is going to be more mature too. Now, talking about extra games that are unlockable or side games that are completable, now they have talked about the Hunt campaign as well as the Tofu campaign, which of course these two were already confirmed, so it's nothing new, but they have said again they are aiming to add other things that may make the replayability of Remake 2 even better than Resident Evil 7. And considering Resident Evil 7 did have a plethora of game modes, although not the most interesting, but still a diverse amount of them, I would like to see what they mean by this, but I'm guessing we'll have to wait for the release or quite close to it to actually get some kind of information on this specific aspect. Apparently the game is going to be very good for speedrunners, or at least the developers do think so, as there are a lot of moments in the game that will allow speedrunners to shave time off their playthrough, and also a knife only playthrough is actually theoretically possible, and if the developers say it's theoretically possible, I know some players out there will definitely achieve it. Now, one of the most interesting points here is that the developers did say one could go outside the police station, and that was even available in the E3 demo, it's just nobody did it, so it hasn't been publicly shown yet. Now, that's an interesting point to say because I did see one person go outside the police station, and it is kind of a known fact that you can. A lot of people know about this, so I'm a little bit confused. Maybe they don't know about this, or are they talking about something further that you can go and explore a little bit further out? I mean, if you look at the design of the RPD, you can see there are some side and extension areas. Maybe you can go further into those, I'm not particularly sure. Maybe you can go outside the main gate, or maybe they didn't know that some people actually got out into this specific area right here in the background. We'll just have to wait to see, but the developers did say that the E3 gameplay will be at the TGS, so that's another confirmation of more gameplay, and they are actually advising that people try to go outside and explore. Development is entering its final cycles, and Capcom is very confident that the game will release without any hitches, without any delays. Famitsu did try to ask the developers about Ada, but the developers did not want to reveal too much information. All they did say particularly was that she was the hardest character to actually get down artistically and to tweak the appearance correctly, and even more so than Claire Redfield. This is a good indication of why Ada was actually shadowed out and very hard to see and very obscured in the original trailer, because they're still probably working on her appearance due to the scarcity of details, and the developers did say that she will be revealed more in depth later on. Now, there are more details in the article, of course, and they do go into more depth about the specific subjects I did talk about. I've just summarized all of these points in a very conclusive way to get the general idea across to you guys. But if you do want to check out that article in more detail, I will be leaving a link in the description below, so do go check that out and make sure you read all of it. There's some very interesting points in there, and they do elaborate a little bit more than I did about the specific points I talked about, but I did, like I said, summarize them pretty well. Talking about my personal opinion on some of these subjects, I do want to say a few things that interested me. Now, first off, about them adding more replayability than Resident Evil 7, it did seem the implication was there might be something extra other than the Hunk and Tofu campaign, but of course they're going to keep that very scarce up to now. In another interview, however, they did say it would be something exclusive to Remake 2 that Resident Evil 7 didn't have, but I'm not sure if that was a mistranslation or something, so do take that with a grain of salt. However, if they did have something like Mercenaries mode or Raid mode as a selective extra at the end, that would just be insanely awesome, and that would definitely add on to the playtime a huge amount for a lot of players. I mean, I wouldn't really underestimate how popular Raid and Mercenaries mode were, because they did have a large player count at the times they were released on their specific games. Hell, even Resident Evil 7 had a lot of people playing the side games and DLC, so there is a huge market for that kind of interest. and I just personally really enjoy playing them. It adds on, especially when you get different characters with different loadouts and utilities and movesets available to them, but how far they would take that in Resident Evil 2, I'm not sure, and it might not even be implemented. Remember, this is just my opinion on these specific points. I'm also pretty happy that they have seemed to have designed the game with speedrunners in mind a little bit. Speedrunning and Resident Evil go hand in hand together. There's huge competitions such as Games Done Quick that do Resident Evil every year, and that's just fantastic, as I think games like this really should have speedrunners in mind. The fact also most of the atmosphere and technology will represent the 90s is nice, and I can see some of the factors that are actually being represented by this, such as the old style desktop PC in the lobby of the RPD as one good example. And for me, I actually do appreciate the stylistic changes in the appearance of Claire. I actually like the modernization, the jacket and everything. I think it looks a lot more cooler than the original design. I mean, I still like the original design, don't get me wrong, of course, but I think the new one fits extremely well. Also, hearing about the fact that they did tweak the game right up until the E3 presentation is just a spectacular thing and quite intriguing. That means that right up until that day, they were literally making last minute modifications to try to get everything perfect, and I just can't imagine how tight the schedule for Capcom must have been at that time, and I can understand why a lot of people were on edge, waiting for it to be revealed at E3 from the staff themselves, and wondering what the reception was. But considering it's been so positive, it looks like this is going to be a great time for absolutely everybody included. Now, if you did enjoy the video, or if you did learn something, please do leave a like, a share, or a subscribe, or all of the above if you're feeling really spicy today. You can also check out some more videos. I have plenty of content on Resident Evil, and for now, I just hope you're having a beautiful day. As always, take it easy, and peace.